At that time, you didn't. There was no YouTube.
No.
There was no. You know, you kind of were winging it. I mean,
Yeah.
at that point in time, there was mailing list, like listservs. I don't know if anybody even remembers that junk. I thought, well, here's the opportunity probably for something that's probably a little bit bigger than me. So I decided it probably would be good to grab a few of those really motivated scrambler owners of those guys and say, look, let's make this work. Let's have an event,
Right.
but let's go ahead and organize it.
Welcome to the Off-Road Campfire Podcast, where stories are told and legends are made. Tonight we have Matt Donaghy, fabricator and builder, founder of Scramblers and Scrambler Owner Association, owner of Gr8Tops, J Truck, and Jeep Jacket. Matt, how the heck are you, man?
I am doing awesome.
Shoo.
Thank you guys for having me here.
Hey, man, what
awesome. It is awesome what you guys have started. And just wanted to see if we can help move it along.
Man.
We're super excited to have you here.
It's awesome to be here.
We are flying by the seat of our pants every day.
Yes, always.
Hey, I don't think you will ask anybody that started anything that won't have that same answer.
Right. That's right. We just an old adage I've always had is fake it till you make it, and
exactly.
we're gonna do that.
That's
We're gonna do that all the way to the end.
It'll get there.
It's there now. We're there. We're there.
It's here. Look at us.
We are the number one, the best. I'm not sure who we're comparing ourselves to, but darn it, we're here.
That's right.
Hey Matt, you've been in you have what? How many years of off-roading experience? I almost wanted to say 40, but I didn't want to call you old.
Oh,
geez. How about 30? 30 years?
Oh, man. Well, some of this might be on some of the other questions too, but I probably, I started messing around with Jeeps probably early 2000s. So
yeah.
20, 25 years, somewhere in there.
Very cool.
But yeah, you'd call that somewhere around 20 years, maybe.
Okay. I was just going to double it on you. No big deal. We'll be all good. Yeah, we,
I mean, I'll delve into that a little bit. I didn't really, as a kid or even 30s, I didn't even really get into Jeeps until probably I was late 30s, 40s. So relatively speaking, always liked them, but never really, it was probably later in my years till I really started getting into them.
Yeah. So we're not going to do the math, the 2000s, 30.
Yeah,
okay. We'll just leave all that alone.
What sparked your interest in it? What was the big thing that exploded for you?
So I have a technology background, went to Purdue University, worked for NCR Corporation for a while, and then that's how I was originally from Indiana, moved down here to West Columbia, South Carolina with NCR Corporation, and then worked with a 4 or 5 a good group of people there. A guy I worked with was an old school CJ person. Cool. And I hung out with him a little bit, and he probably I would blame him for sucking me into this.
Yeah, we all have that friend.
He had a CJ7, and he did not have a garage, and he was renting a like a mini storage unit, and he had that thing torn apart in the mini storage unit. So every time he had to go work on it, he would go over there and work on it. So a shout out to Greg Fowler. Thank you. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. I was going to say a Jeep costs you enough money, and then you go rent a storage unit every month
That's right.
to
I mean,
stick
that's
it in and work
commitment,
on it.
though. That's commitment. I mean, seriously.
It is. It is. But so he bugged me. I don't know. I never really got to ride in that one as much as I'd go over there a few times, see what he was up to. Never really got to ride in that one. But I don't know. A year or two after that, I was looking to buy something different. You were single, had more money and sense and time. You also had more time on your hands than anything else too. So I bought a 87 YJ. I think that's
Nice.
probably where all of our Jeep stories started as a YJ, but
Square
a
headlights
little
are the
four,
best.
yep, a little 4-cylinder, baby blue. I mean, it was kind of
Nice.
not pretty. Half doors. Drove that for a little while and I had fun with it. And then after that, sold that and bought an 94 YJ. So jumped to fuel injection. That was a
Oh,
big
yeah.
thing. Sahara. So it was the real light tan,
Mhm.
with the Jurassic Park seats, pockets, the green.
Nice.
Um, and started messing around with that. So, put some bumpers on it, lifted it, did a few things here and there. So those two were probably where it started.
I
So where did
love
this
that. Go
go
ahead.
ahead?
I love that so many stories that spark so much interest in the Jeep community starts with square headlights.
Oh, geez. We're going
I
to start
just
this
love
crap.
that. I
Well,
love that.
Okay.
well,
So,
I'll get to that where the square headlights in a bit for a later Jeep, but yes, it is interesting that. But that was at that time, and I always
Yeah.
think of too, what Jeeps you owned, and in relation, looking back on them, you look in relation to how old they were at the time that you bought them.
Mhm.
Like
right.
so in '87, that was it was probably early 2000, maybe, I don't know, 1999, somewhere in there. So even then, I mean, they were 13,
Yeah.
whatever, 15
Yeah.
years old. Um, so
Yeah,
those are
you and I have had this conversation before, and I think that the YJ honestly, I think, sparked the next generation of off-roaders. And when you got into the mid '90s, that's what the kids, those kids that age could afford was
right.
the YJ, because that was,
Yep.
and that's I think the YJ really, I think honestly it set forth what we know of off-roading today. I mean,
Yeah.
I would agree.
the CJ up to that point was, it just wasn't there. Like I think
Yeah.
the YJ came out, and the modification, the aftermarket world started expanding off of that, and I think that really set forth a lot of what we see of off-roading today was honestly the YJ.
Yep. I would agree.
Yeah. So where did this, you have a knack for turning everything you touch into a scrambler. Why?
Uh, so after that YJ, I don't know. Maybe it was that Greg, or I was still hanging out with him or working with him. He, I don't. To be honest, I don't know. But that was probably where it came from. Was him. We saw one on. Back then at that time there wasn't marketplace. There wasn't. It was probably the trader, or it was
Oh
probably
yeah.
I don't know. I found a scrambler down in Savannah and called the guy, and uh and then Greg had told me, kind of about the rarity of those. So I thought, man, those would be nice. And at the time I was kind of into mountain biking, and I thought, man, that's nice. You could throw the mountain bike in the back of those,
Yeah.
and being kind of rare, I thought that'd be cool to have one of those. So he rode down there with me. I mean, 2 hours at least to Savannah. It was running drivable. Drove it home.
It's cool.
Didn't really do anything with it. I mean, it had a half top on it. It was
Yeah.
pretty solid. And other than messing around with the lift kit on the YJs and stuff, I was not per se a mechanically inclined person. nothing from history of family. You know, we didn't really get into that. My brother or I, as younger, you know, when we were younger. So I thought, well, you know, if I'm going to keep it, I might want to, you know, go ahead and see if I can get it painted, start, you know. So one thing leads to another, and the next thing I know, and again, you know, single, having more time on your hands, and also probably less sense and more expendable income.
Mhm.
I tore that thing apart in my garage. I completely took the tub off, took the frame apart, and then and you and I, Ryan, you and I have had this discussion. At that time, you didn't. There was no YouTube.
No.
There was no. You know, you kind of were winging it. I mean,
Yeah.
at that point in time, there was mailing list, like listservs. I don't know if anybody even remembers that junk, where, you know, people would post questions and it was a listserv. You'd get emails back, and somebody would reply, and then it would reply back to all. Um, and then also about that time, discussion forums were starting to kind of also happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was,
People had websites, and then they were starting to, you know, open source software. They were starting to stick discussion forums in their own little websites. I still worked for an internet software company at that point, and I thought, oh, that'd be kind of cool. Let me go see if um a domain name was available. So I looked, and cj-8.com was available. So kind of a joke, whatever. I took pictures of the thing laying apart in my yard, posted them on the website. Didn't have a discussion forum, just posted them on there. Put an email contact, and people, I mean, strangely enough, people started emailing. It's like, hey, I got one of those. Do you know where you can find whatever? So
that's cool.
that went on for, I mean, a year or so. And then I thought, well, it'd be a whole lot easier to manage if it had a discussion forum. People could actually
Right.
join, you know, post their questions. So I did that. I added a discussion forum. And through that process, I kept posting more pictures of my own build on there. Put a 4.0 fuel injected motor from a Grand Cherokee in it.
That's
So at
cool.
that time, again, you know, old CJs and
Yeah.
fuel injection, that was kind of a big deal. Hesco, you know, at that point in time, they were the big people in the game for that. So,
Mhm.
guy out in Texas mailed him the harness, the engine harness. He sent it back to me, plugged and played.
It's crazy.
And then a much controversial topic is, I mean, I had kind of knew this or read about it, but I put a YJ front end on the front of that scrambler.
That's awesome.
Um, a lot of people.
I was going to say for some, a very small portion.
Yes.
I'm sure at that point in time, it was no, you don't do that.
That was right up there along the lines of, you know, of cutting the tail of it off too, of bobbing a scrambler. You know, like just it really evoked a lot of emotions with people of just something you don't do. But you saw, I mean, there was some out there. People did it. So I did that, and so somewhere along that line, you know, later in that time, I started. I wanted to put a full hardtop on it. You know, they came with the half hardtops as a truck,
Right.
but they never
Yeah.
came from the factory, other than a couple little weird variants that were mostly export. They didn't come with a full hardtop. So there really wasn't any company that was making one of those. So I investigated it, and you know, I was still doing IT work full time for a couple different companies. So I kind of investigated that, found a couple local people that would do that, that would make them. So on a whim, I invested in a mold to make for like a full length hardtop, and started making those and selling those
That's cool.
through that discussion forum. So some people were starting to, you know, buy those through that. Didn't really, I mean, at that point, to be honest, I don't even know if I had the brand name associated with them, but just kind of started doing that. Really sold a few, nothing, you know, nothing to quit the day job for, but I sold a few of them. But then I think really,
Now, were you building these out of your garage?
so I had a guy that was built boat parts.
Okay.
He was, I don't know, 45 minutes away. He was actually making them. I would get them, bring them to a, a small shop that I had, um, put all the hardware, mount the windows, and then do crate and ship them.
Right.
So
Oh,
we
you
we
shipped them. That's a big deal, shipping
yeah,
them.
and uh, those were a pain. I mean, it was essentially a truck count. There
Yeah.
was, and through time they frequently got damaged, because they were so big. No matter how much you tried to crate them,
Mhm.
they just frequently got damaged.
Yeah.
So kept doing that, but really, I think at that point, I did come up with the name of Gr8Tops. The eight coming from the number of
Yeah.
a CJ8, and
That's
then hard tops, positive name, Gr8Tops.
Mhm.
Um, Shortly after that, or somewhere during that time, TJs were out, and then they announced that LJ was coming out, the long wheelbase.
Right.
So,
Which,
you know,
which is your next platform right there. Like that's
correct.
That's it. Yeah.
So those were kind of the inverse. Those came with a full length hard top, but they never came with a half hard top.
Yeah.
Um,
there you go.
and as soon as those came out, there was a couple people that did that hacked up, factory hard tops, but they were never done well. Like
Mhm.
in my opinion, they just didn't have the correct lines. So I went down that path of a half hard top for a TJ and an LJ, and that make it look like a scrambler on a modern platform. So those are probably, strangely enough, those are probably still our biggest seller. I mean, even today,
That's
we probably
awesome.
still sell the most for TJs and LJs.
Yeah.
They look
That's
awesome
So
too. Very
we-
unique.
weird little, niche market of people that want a two-door small pickup truck. It is a subset of, the it's, well, it's not a gladiator market. It's
no.
it's somebody that wants just two people or one person. We
Mhm.
sell a lot to ranchers,
Yeah, I could see that being super a handy utility vehicle type thing.
farmers,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Very.
So we're kind of continuing that legacy, or continuing that on even onto the JKs and JLs of a two-door truck platform.
That's
Yeah.
really cool.
That's cool. We'll come back to the fact that because I think you make a good point about it's not a gladiator and it's not even the same market, and I think that right there is a whole discussion I want to touch on before. But during the midst of you doing this out of your garage, you I don't know if you sought out to do it, but you started a whole Scrambler Association. Was that tied to the forum? How did that come about?
Correct. So about that time, when I started that discussion forum, I that kind of took off. I mean, there was a lot of people joining there,
Yeah.
um, and when that took off, a lot of those people started saying, "Hey, we should have an event where it's just scramblers.
That's cool.
Come to it." And about that time too, Camp Jeep
Yeah.
was going on, and Jeep events were those type of Jeep events were kind of really all you had. There wasn't Smoky Mountain Pigeon Forge. There wasn't
No.
Jeep Beach. This
Yeah,
is way before all of that.
that was the
So
shows.
those were the shows. So a lot of those people that were going to that were like, "Hey, man, we should have So I kind of saw that, but I thought, well, if you're going to do that, you somebody's got to run it. I mean,
Mhm.
somebody's got to
Yeah, coordinate things.
organize that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who was the guy
So
not at the meeting that decided to take that?
exactly. So I thought, well, here's the opportunity probably for something that's probably a little bit bigger than me. So I decided it probably would be good to grab a few of those really motivated scrambler owners of those guys and say, look, let's make this work. Let's have an event,
Right.
but let's go ahead and organize it. So I made a nonprofit club out of South Carolina, which is called the Scrambler Owners Association. Only, it had some stipulations. You had to be a Scrambler owner. And we started having in 2002, I believe it was, we planned the first event of just Scrambler owners. It was in Hot Springs, Arkansas.
How many people attended?
I believe that first one we had around 35, 40 scramblers.
It's a good group. Yeah, it's a
Usually
decent group.
two to three, um, 2 to 3 per owner that
Mhm.
came. Um, talk about, I mean, it was strange because these are people that you only knew by a forum username.
Mhm.
Right.
You never actually, a lot of them I had talked to on the phone.
Mhm.
And you never met them. I mean, it truly was a little strange. But having said that, some of those people that I know from that organization and those first ones, and even ones I've met since then, it is an incredible eclectic group of people. I mean, they're from absolute all walks of life, but those are some of the, I've listened to y'all before. They're just some of the most genuine people that
Yeah.
you will ever meet.
That's really, really
We
nice.
got to we got to go to the 20th anniversary one they just had this past spring, and got to see a lot of those people, and it was awesome.
That's cool.
Just to be
That
able to
is.
see a lot of those people that you had worked with before, and so
Yeah.
that was and they're still going. I mean, the organization still exists. They're thriving. They got we had at that event, I think it was over 40. It's 45, 48, somewhere in there. Scramblers.
That's pretty cool.
That's
Yeah. I mean, you touched on it in a minute. To explain to somebody what the Jeep world was in the late 90s, early 2000s, to anybody that got into Jeeps 08 or later or earlier, whatever you want to say, 08 to now,
Mhm.
you can't, I mean, Facebook didn't exist. Instagram, of course, didn't exist. I mean, heck, you brought up the trader, man. I miss grabbing the trader and just, I mean, that was your marketplace. You flipped through that through
Yeah.
black and white pictures and just like, you were like, that's a sick build. Like, look at that thing. Oh, I want that thing. And God, that was all. And you're right. Forums are all we had. Like, we didn't have the
Yeah.
YouTube. I mean,
It
that
was all
was,
it was all trial and error too. I mean,
And some of well, I mean, even like mine, the first one, the early ones, you didn't even have pictures. It was just like, attachment,
just the all you get was text.
yeah, attachments, and images were like you sell your grandma to post a picture, just on the discussion forum, or they charge for it or whatever. Some of them just didn't even have the ability.
right?
So I mean, you were just asking questions, in text format.
Yeah. And,
Crazy.
and you're right. To get a group of Jeepers or off-roaders together it was all local. Cause I mean, unless you had the big events like Moab or Camp Jeep or anything like that, like that was it. And it's incredible the communication we have now. And I mean, Pigeon Forge would have never been what it is today back then. I mean, it wouldn't have been because nobody would have known about it.
Mhm.
Easter Jeep Safari. I mean, that was a big deal, but I think even in '95 it started to be a big deal.
Mhm.
And that's when the JP magazines and all that started to really advertise them and push it. And then
Yeah.
of course it blew up since then. And now it's the mecca of paradise. off-roaders, some would say. But yeah, it is incredible. I mean, you bring a point up, it's incredible to see what you can't explain it to people what it used to be. And I think that separates, and I look at a scrambler owner, and that's even that kind of, I'm not going to just say all scrambler owners are old, because I would never say that, because that's rude and insensitive.
It's okay.
But I think you definitely find an older generation with that. Yeah, older generation with that, and even still, you guys with YJs and TJs when they came out in the early 2000s, you definitely get a separation there, and I just think it's crazy that you guys have been doing it that long, and you still got groups of guys coming together for that.
The community is still there.
So
it's an awesome event they have. That's the quote, the national one that's sponsored, but there is sub ones kind of that that they have kind of regionally. There's one up on Silver Lake in Michigan on the dunes. They have a pretty big gathering also in the summer of usually 30 to 30 scrambler people up there. That's an awesome. We got to go up there, not in a scrambler, but 2 or 3 years ago we went up there for that. I highly recommend that if you ever have the chance. Kind of right up there with Rubicon Trail and Moab and everything else. That's Silver Lake sand dunes.
That's
very cool.
I'll have to check that out.
Very cool. So you did your Gr8Tops and started that, and then but you also have two other organizations or companies under your umbrella. You have the Jeep Jacket, which is one, correct? And then you got your J Truck.
Yep. So, I mean, those are kind of brand names or product names underneath the Gr8Tops. So the Jeep Jackets are like a quick rain cover that fits tightly over your roll cage. It's waterproof material, made in the U.S., made right here in Lexington. We have those for like almost all the models. But they fit tight over, if you have your soft top or your hard top off. Quick rain cover for the trail. If you're out for the day or you take your top off for the day, throw that in the back. It's about the size of a sleeping bag. So we have those Jeep Jackets. And then J Truck is the current, kind of platform for both JKs and JLs that we convert a four-door platform. So we'll take a four-door JKU or a four-door. We just came out with the JLs, where we take either one of those and we basically cut the whole back of the Jeep off in the middle of the back door, and it's a cab enclosure. We've designed a fiberglass cab enclosure that literally bolts on where the B pillar used to be, or the back doors. Makes you a cab enclosure, and then you're left with, you can do a couple different options for the back. We've been doing, and we've had a lot of requests, and we've done a lot of the builds with flatbeds on them. Kind of a cool one that we're starting to work on with it is also like a small camper on the back of one.
Nice. That's awesome.
JL ones, just finishing those up, and then actually kind of another cool one that we'll be doing starting on here probably in the next week or two, of taking kind of going backwards, or some people will say backwards, on a Gladiator, where we're actually cutting the whole back of the cab off, the back seat. The cab enclosure will go on, make it a two-door pickup, but the frame, so now you have almost a 7-8 foot bed on it.
That would be awesome.
Long bed. You're going with a good old Ford long beds back in the day.
Yep, that's kind of what it would be.
Yeah.
But in all those scenarios, we're not cutting the frame. We talked to Clinton and I were talking beforehand about the Brutes. They were cool. And also the JK Brutes. But you had to cut, you were cutting the frame.
Right. Yeah, a lot. It was a lot of cutting, yeah.
I mean, you had to be on your game. You were cutting fuel lines, brake lines, all that kind of stuff. The
Mhm.
way we've done these J trucks is we're not cutting the fuel lines, we're not cutting the brakes, we're not doing anything drivetrain related. You're going to use the same drive shaft, any normal lift kit works, but we're essentially just cutting sheet metal, and there's no body work on the sheet metal that you are cutting because the cab back literally bolts on.
That's super awesome.
So,
I mean,
so, so on the four doors, what are you doing with the four doors? Like, what are you doing with the back doors?
You might swing. You might swing around and see like three
Yeah,
pairs of them sitting in
yeah.
the office
You're
here.
cutting them off, chunking them. I mean, are you replacing them with another? You say there's no sheet metal work, but will you
The,
see the doors when they're on there, or we see the
no, so
cutout?
the doors, the back doors come completely off, and we're cutting. Actually, if you envision the Jeep with the doors off, there's a pinch weld seam in the bottom of the middle of the back door,
mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
and we literally just take a sawzall and cut right in that pinch weld seam. So the back doors stay off. They aren't even in the picture anymore. And this cab back bolts on right where the curvature and the door hinges used to bolt on.
Oh,
Okay.
very cool.
That makes sense.
And
That
then
makes sense.
the doors go on marketplace and nobody ever buys them. They just
That
sit around here and along
starts
with
start selling half doors for
yeah.
me, please. That'd be great.
We actually cut a pair of them just to see if we thought, but it was too much work to try and fill in the door handle
Well, there goes my
Yeah.
hope and dream.
yeah. But like I said, I got a couple pair if you really want some, Ryan.
Because that. And
We're
now is that
coming.
something you do in house? Like, do people bring their rigs to you and do it in house, or is
We
this?
do.
Yeah.
We sell them as a kit. On the YouTube channel, we got an install video. We can sell it as a kit, which is really not that hard. Um, somebody with a sawzall and a cutoff wheel, which most dangerous people have those
Yeah.
in their garage. Sawzall and a cutoff wheel and a little bit of ambition, you really can do this. If you want to fabricate your own, this is just the cab part, but if you want to fabricate the bed part, um, and then, but yes, we'll do somebody will send us their Jeep and we'll do a conversion.
That's cool. I'm really excited to see the JT and JL platform when they're released. I think that's a great idea. I think it'd be really cool.
Well, the thing is, and we alluded to this about the Gladiator market versus these. So the Gladiator it's great. I mean, but it's essentially a full size truck.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It
I
is.
mean, and if you want to wheel those and you want to wheel them hard, you, you better have you better have 40, 42-inch tires and a massive lift, and
Hmm.
then also you're probably, if you're that person, you're probably considering cutting the bed off, the
Right.
back of the bob in the bed. um
Unless you want to make a 5-point turn around absolutely everything.
right.
Yeah.
So the people that are buying our products for even the TJs and um the JLs and the JKs for the J trucks, they aren't, I'll say it politely, I guess, they're just not Gladiator fans.
Hmm.
They're
Yeah.
they aren't going to be buying a Gladiator. They want two doors, and they don't want a massive truck. They want something with a reasonable wheelbase, and with a JLU platform or a JKU platform, you can still wheel that. I mean, that's a
Oh
normal,
yeah,
wheelable
absolutely.
um wheelbase.
Yeah. And I think I was going to make the point earlier, and I totally forgot what I was going to say. So I just kind of roll with something else. But my point was, I think '08 when the JKU came out, I mean, that changed the market. And we talk about the YJs, the TJ guys, even the LJ. I mean, that was a different entire market of Jeeps and off-roadings until the JK came out. And I guess I heard someone say it was the minivan of Jeeps.
They get so
Yeah.
much
And
hate too because everyone was like, "There's no way this is gonna do well on trails. It's way too long." And and here
Right.
we are with the Gladiator.
I think the JK transformed the market,
For sure.
and I would also venture. I mean, in my opinion,
Yeah.
it also really transformed whether which direction you want to call it, whatever the Jeep culture.
It did.
Um,
Yeah.
It did.
because I think that you know TJs and LJs, those were people that most of those people were people that owned a CJ or a YJ.
Mhm.
Right.
They were just upgrading.
Well,
Yes.
you still had two doors. You still had to finagle how to get something in the back, or get a
Right.
kid in the back, or get.
Very similar platforms.
Yeah, I mean, you still had two doors. You had to work to drive a TJ, a CJ, and a two-door rig.
Yeah.
When the four-door came out, it was like, well, I just open up the back.
Yeah. So dare I go down this rabbit trail too? But when I say culture, so if you were a CJ or a YJ owner, you were probably already fully aware that your feet were going to get wet.
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
And you're going to look down, and you're probably going to see some water draining down the dash.
Yeah.
Looking at you, and you're probably fully aware that you're going to look out through a soft top window and see daylight
Yeah,
through
I do.
through a rubber seal.
I
Yes.
do every day.
Whatever.
I do
But-
every day.
I mean, so, and the JKs, those people just they didn't own a Jeep before,
no,
Yeah.
so they weren't,
They expected it to be a normal vehicle,
right.
but a Jeep at
Yeah.
the same time.
But
Yeah.
again, that market just exploded.
Hmm.
That the JK exploded the whole market.
Yeah.
yeah, and I think the accessory market went along with it as well and blew that up too. And it was easy just to put a 2-inch on something and
Right.
lift it and put wheels and tires and call it good.
Mhm.
I mean,
Exactly.
heck, a 2-inch on a TJ would get you nothing.
31s.
Right.
Yeah, if that, scrub
Yeah.
it.
Right.
I mean, it wouldn't get you anything. Heck, I remember we putting 6 inches on SJs and only putting a 35 under them.
Right.
Now you put a 6-inch on a rig, you're rolling a 42.
Yeah. Well,
It's incredible. Yeah, and I think that did definitely change the culture. And I think your market definitely speaks to a generation that cherishes the originality of Jeep, I guess.
For sure.
And and still desires that two-door kind of feel. I mean, even the, dare I bring it up, the Broncos still struggle with the same thing, because you had the full-size Broncos that were two doors, and the little ones that were two doors as well, and now they're rocking the four doors and going through the same culture shift, even though they didn't make them for years. Culture shift from one generation to another. So, yep. So,
Well,
I mean,
and I think, one last point on that topic is, so I mean, I've kind of redone my logo and came up with it in similar kind of a branding to that is vintage inspiration and modern craftsmanship. So a lot of the things like the J truck, we took cues off of really old stuff, like a Willys truck. If you look at the J truck, the back of the cab is totally vertical. If you look at old Willys pickup truck, the back of the cab is totally vertical.
yeah.
We did a bubbled roof, like on the JK, that looks like the old two-door Willys bubble roof on a Willys truck.
Yeah.
But it's not sheet metal. It's modern composites.
Mhm.
So we're trying to bring a little bit of that old school, forward into any of the new models.
Yeah.
So you're doing this, shipping these, building them, shipping them out
Yep.
with a staff of.
We're not big. We are a small company. I got myself and then two guys.
Oh wow!
So we keep busy and get the
I would
product
say.
out.
I
Yeah.
would.
Well, that's awesome.
I would say. Yeah,
That's really cool.
I mean, yeah, you seem to be 3 staff members chugging this out. I mean, quality control is pretty on top of the game, I
Yeah,
guess.
I mean, everybody, as as a small company, everybody does a little bit.
Yeah.
You got to do a little bit of everything.
Right, right.
So,
How long does it take to from start to finish on a standard half cab style tile?
so for example, we had a TJ in here this past week. TJs are pretty easy. Um, if if we're really on the game, we can actually probably do one of those, including the bed liner, um, in a day. Um,
Okay.
Most of the times, I tell people customer a day and a half on those. Two-door JKs a little bit longer. I usually want those 2 full days, because they welded the rear sport cage on the fender wells on JKs. The two
Mm,
bars that we have to cut off, those are welded, so we got to drill those out and do a little bit more work. And
yeah.
then a J truck kind of depends on what kind of bed is going on it. But for example, we did one a couple weeks ago. The If we have the cab back painted ahead of time, if it's already been to the body shop and correct color match, and customer brings it in here, we can do one of those really. And if we have the flatbed already done and it's ready to bolt on, having the Jeep in here, we could probably, I mean, that's probably about 3 or 4 days and we can have it
Okay.
done.
That's not too bad. And what
And
about
you,
manufacturing the top? How long does it
yeah.
take to manufacture the top?
So the lamination part, laying it up and actually pulling it back out of the mold, I mean, that's probably a day and a half.
Okay.
And then we usually have about a day, one person on it after it comes out of the mold, of texturing, put the window in, installing the latches, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Cool. Very cool.
So how do you keep it going? How do you keep the idea of the J truck evolving? I mean, you started your business in 2000 and
So we've been around since about 2005.
okay.
Um, I'm it. It's as a small business owner, you always kind of looking left and right. What do you think people would buy? And then
Right.
also from the same token, what do people want? Um,
Mhm.
what are they already calling for? For example, and this one, going back to, I don't know why we keep going back to those ridiculous YJs, but for example, YJs, people kept, I mean, we used to sell the half top, which is the same half top that'll fit on a CJ8 or a CJ7.
Mhm.
Um, we sold it for the YJ for a while, and the mold was the end of its life cycle, so I just didn't make another mold for it. And so I took it offline, took the product offline, and just say discontinued. We had people calling left and right
Wow.
still for that. So we brought it back. It
Nice.
had to spend the money on the mold, and we still produce them. And I mean, strangely enough, we still sell a fair amount of those.
YJ owners stay strong out there.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about that. Uh, it's interesting that
Mhm.
the price point of what that top is, and the price point of the Jeep, what people are paying for the Jeep. And
Mhm.
then, on the YJs, they're a little bit more complex because you have to tear out that main hoop that goes over
Mhm.
your shoulders for the seat belts.
Yeah.
On
Yeah.
the TJs and LJs, we can cut those 2 bars off of the back, and boom, the top goes on over that front cage. On the YJs, you got to tear that whole hoop out and either refabricate it.
Wow.
So not only are you into it for the top, you got to do some cage work.
Mhm.
And is that your biggest seller?
Our biggest seller, like I said, still is probably the TJ and the LJ half
Okay.
hard tops. Um, the JKs they're starting to creep up there, and then we also do sell the Safari tops. For the LJs that's probably our second or third biggest seller for
Yeah, there's
the
not a lot of
LJs.
options for LJ hardtop, so I would think that would be a pretty good
Yep.
option for sure.
And that top, when it's done on that Jeep, it completely transforms the look of that Jeep.
It does. They look really good. They look really good.
So
And
go ahead.
that one was that's kind of also, an old school throwback. The Scramblers, that got its inspiration from the Scramblers. The Alaskan Postal Service ordered, I don't know what it was, 50, 80 Scramblers that were right-hand drive that had a metal hardtop on them that didn't have any windows.
Oh.
It was the same hardtop that was on Scramblers that were for export, that went to South America. But the ones for export in South America had windows in them, and the ones for the Alaskan ones didn't have windows at all. But anyways, if you look at the lines of those, they have the exact same profile, and that's kind of where that inspiration, everybody looks at it right away and says Land Rover, but
Yeah.
yes, they do, but they came from that look of those. In addition to the old CJ5s, and some sevens had what was called a Myers hardtop on them, and they were a metal hardtop that had those three windows across the back.
Oh yeah.
So it kind of has that look,
Yeah.
that throwback look of those as well.
You definitely don't see those much anymore. I
You
mean,
don't.
if they're even,
every once in a while in Marketplace you might see one.
I don't think I've ever even seen one. That's probably sad.
yeah, they're definitely. I think I've seen two or three, and then until you brought it up, I wouldn't even remember that. So you guys are building. I know you guys have done camper shells before. Is that and I know you're working on one now and fabbing that out. Where do you see that going?
So we did one for a JK, kind of a different little build last summer. We took the back doors off of a tub, but we didn't cut the tub, and just had some fiberglass closeout doors that bolted in, and modified the factory hardtop so that you can just fold the seat down and throw a mattress in there, and it has a camper door, entry door in the back. Kind of pushing that to the, again, small business, you gotta look left and right and try and everything look anywhere. So we're trying to introduce that and kind of get that out to the overlanding market. And then this other one that we're building on the back of a J truck, we'll kind of go after that, or see what kind of interest we can get kind of in the overlanding market. It'll be kind of like a two-person teardrop, basically, kind of mounted on the back of a four-door platform. So again, you get the wheelbase where you could actually take it off road, and not have a massive Gladiator truck that you're trying to brush through the trails.
I'm sure when you build that, weight is definitely something that's on the forefront.
So we're going to, what we've got so far, the goal is try and make it actually completely out of composites, so that there's no wood. It is going to have a steel kind of an underpinning or a steel frame that we use to bolt to the JK frame. But other than that, of the box itself and the majority of everything else, we're trying to do all out of composites.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So when we cut the back of the Jeep off, you're taking the back doors off, you're taking the back seat. The back seat actually weighs.
Yeah, it's heavy.
I mean, it's heavy and awkward. That's at least 150, 175 pounds.
Mhm.
You got the spare tire. Of course, you still want to keep a spare, but the tailgate, all that sheet metal, you're losing about 400 pounds with all the sheet metal and the doors and everything. So if you add that 400 on to what the payload capacity is, um, you got a little bit of room to work with as far as weight.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, what do you have a goal weight for that in mind, or is it just something that?
So the like a JK Rubicon, they actually have a little bit higher GVR. I believe those are at 5,600 pounds, if I recall. Um, just a regular sport is 400 below that. I think it's 52. Um, I'm trying to keep the box and everything around 5 to 600 pounds.
Okay,
Yeah, that's not much of a
no,
So
difference
you,
there.
so you would still have, ability to, room for a cooler, fridge, your all your other camping gear and clothes and everything else.
yeah, I mean that's doable. Yeah, you're gonna get real heavy when you start throwing all that extra crap in there. So
Yeah.
I saw the composite material you're using. I think it's fantastic. Like if you guys got the frame built out, and
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be great.
I'm excited about it. We'll see how it turns out. And we are we're not going to be vending at Smoky Mountain, but we may go up there if we get it finished. We've got 2 or 3 of these other customer Jeeps that we really got to get finished up. So
Well, definitely come see me if you do come
I
up. I'll
will.
be
I will.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you do. Are you going, Ryan?
We're gonna be more Windrock than Pigeon Forge.
I wish
We're,
I
we're,
could be, but
we're gonna go play more than we are. We are
my
gonna go
Jeep's
do it.
gonna be like trapped in the inside booth. I'm not
No,
gonna be able to get it out.
Are you all indoor, Clinton?
Yeah, we got an inside
Oh
booth
wow.
this year. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey Ryan, maybe you can follow me if you are going and I do go up. Maybe you can follow me around to restaurants and make sure that I don't leave anything in a restaurant.
yeah. So story behind that, I walked last year. I walked in behind Matt and saw him. I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And then I go to order, put my credit card, and Matt's credit card's in the machine, and he's gone walked out the door and going out the parking lot. I mean,
That's great.
I really had to question my ethics because it was like, well, so everything's right across the street. I can go buy this and that and this. I mean, I could have a tricked out rig by noon easily,
Yeah.
easily. So
That's
no,
awesome.
So
I did.
I tell that story to my wife sometimes, and of course, I get the wife response of shaking her head and like,
Yeah,
you
you
really
shouldn't
did
have done
not
that.
do that, did that?
Yeah.
Did you? And I
You
said, yeah,
shouldn't have
I
done that.
did.
So yeah, I could have
Well,
kept it.
that's why I prove that I'll hang out with Ryan every once in a while because he's proven
Yeah,
trustworthy.
I was gonna say I had a set of
Trustworthy.
RCVs on the brain too,
He's
and
he's got some decency. Yeah, he's decent.
every once in a while. So talk to me. I mean, you as your small business. I mean, you've been through 2008, and of course those are kind of the markers. 2008, obviously COVID. What's been your kind of mentality to keep it going and innovate the products you have? And I mean, heck, with a employee list of 3, including yourself, so really 2. How do you keep them on track to stay focused and put out the best product?
Small business is fun. It's not for
Yeah.
it is not for the faint of heart. I think it just a lot of times it's just so simple. You got to get up and grind.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
You
is.
know,
That's
it,
it for sure.
it's challenging trying to make sure you keep everything moving, all the things that need to keep moving, and then a lot of times it's even harder to let go of some of the things that you aren't working.
Mhm.
But you really don't know until you try. So you
Yeah.
keep trying different things. I'm really grateful for I've been doing this for this long, and we're still here. Through,
Yeah.
like you said, through 2008, and I mean, to a certain extent, I think, in another 2 years, we may look back at the last year and a half or so and say the
Yeah.
same
I mean,
thing.
we're in it again. I mean, there's no
But
doubt.
we're here. You just have to be creative. You gotta be creative, and you gotta be persistent. But like I said, I've been grateful for a supportive wife and a family. Um, you know, it, we didn't get into that part, but in 2006, one. I had already had my oldest son, and then my wife was pregnant, and I was miserable doing IT computer work, and I really enjoyed this. And she came to me, and we talked about it, and she was like, "You got to get out of there. You're miserable." And I'm like, "Well, if you haven't noticed, you're pregnant, and it's it's
Not
not
good
really
timing.
The whole steady income money thing is
yeah,
pretty
yeah,
attractive
yeah."
too.
So, and I mean, this is a reflection of her. She was like, we'll figure it out, and we did, and so that's kind of the mentality of you, you know. Sometimes you got to redirect and just figure it out.
Yeah.
But I also I'm also very grateful for a lot of help, and direction and wisdom and from a lot of different people. We were talking about, the generational of Jeep people. Uh, I got early on, I got to hang out with some really good people, even aside from the Scrambler Owners Association. For example, I remember one time when we had just come out with the half hardtop for LJs. There was a guy called me up. I'd never met him. I'd heard of him, and some of y'all may know this. Chris Overacker. He ran Code 4x4, and then he started Mountain um, More or Mountain Off Road. So
Oh.
he was one of the early ones, making
Huh.
bumpers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, he was building a customer LJ that wanted a half top. So I had shipped it to him, and after he put it on, he was like, "Hey, if you're going to come out to Easter Jeep Safari, just let me know. I'll help you out." So he bugged me. I mean, I talked to him one more time, and I was still working full time at the IT computer work. So he had called me and said, "Hey, if you want the customer's Jeep that we put this on, I'll meet you at the airport." So I'd never met the guy. He picked me up at uh the furthest airport in Colorado. I forget.
Junction. Grand
Grand Junction.
Junction.
Yeah, he had somebody else driving there, and this was like a 2-year-old, 1 or 2-year-old LJ. It had Monster Energy drink graphics all over it with a half top. Handed
No.
me the keys. He'd never met me. Handed me the keys and said, "Here, I'll see you tomorrow. Just go ahead and put it in the, I had paid for a booth, and and then hauled me back and put me back on the plane. I slept on his couch that night, but just like he's an old school person, and Fred Perry, you know, just a lot of those old school Chris Durham, a lot of those old school
Oh
people
yeah.
have always supported us, and have always been an inspiration too, to how you do your business, and it's just to see some of those people still is great to interact with them. So I've had the opportunity to be around and hang out with some of those people to help get us started, and they've also helped put some of our products on their Jeeps and helped launch us as well.
Very cool. Yeah, I think the off-road business industry, even the aftermarket world is, I mean, everybody's got their secrets, their trade secrets that they keep, but it's also, it's an open relationship. I mean, it is help out whoever you can, whenever you can. And I think, I don't know what I would compare it to, but I feel like the off-road industry is set apart. most other industries of competitiveness. I mean, we all want to thrive, but I think it's definitely, and you see it all over the place all the time. People helping each other fix builds,
Mhm.
making things happen, putting priority lists in front of things that, you know, spending midnights at shops just to get things built and finished and work through. Heck, I mean, even KOH this year, you had the one guy that burned up his rig in his trailer, and you know, by the next day, the thing was put back together because everybody pitched in. You know, it's an incredible industry, and yeah, that's cool. Great story, but more.
Yeah. He's I mean, I'd still look back on that one and think, who, you know, would you do that today? Would you give, as a shop owner, would you give the keys to a customer's Jeep, not even your own Jeep, but a
Not even-
customer's Jeep,
Yeah.
for somebody else to drive,
Yeah.
you know, what is it, from Grand Junction to Moab?
I mean, you're still looking at about what, an hour, 2 hours
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and he just like it was nothing. I mean, but I mean, yeah. So there's, I mean, I think on the website there's a picture of that Jeep. I took some. I remember taking some, you know, just going out on the trail or somewhere and taking some pictures. But
Yeah. So, as a business owner, best advice you've ever been given, or advice you like to
I tell this one to my kids, uh, and it's not really even off-road related,
go
but
clean your room?
well,
Yeah.
that too. But it's a, for my higher education. I went to Purdue University, and out of all of the things and majors that I had, this is the one. There's two things I remember a professor teaching or saying in class that have stuck with me, and one of them is, um, in the world of education, we do you the biggest disservice by treating you exactly the same as everyone. We treat you, we have to go to great lengths to make sure that we treat everybody the same.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's a bad lesson that we teach you, because that's not reality.
Right.
Is you're just not going to be treated equally. You're not going to be, you know, treated the same in real life. And there's no way for you to practice or teach that. That's just one of those that you're going to end up, you know, you got to figure out.
Yeah.
But that also dictates your attitude. I mean, if you're going to sit and stew about that, about I was treated unfairly, and whine about it, you you you're probably not going to be successful. You got to keep, you know, it is what it is, and you keep moving on. You got to redirect. And then the other one, sadly, I forget.
It's that scrambler mind.
There was
No,
another one
I'm.
that a professor told me. But I mean, I guess, you know, everybody says it, and it is true. At the end of the day, um, as far as your customers and what how you run a business and what you do, you just treat everybody the way you want to be treated.
Yeah.
And do what you need to do to make sure that you try and treat everybody the way you want to be treated.
Yeah, I agree completely with
I,
that.
you know, I'm human. I can't say that I've done that every time, and but that's the goal, you know,
Mhm.
to try and do that. And you know,
Yeah.
on that same token, God's grace is in there somewhere.
Yeah.
It's probably higher than both of those, because I've, you know, I've not lived up to that at times, and then that's where that grace comes in.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, especially, I mean, it's in everything you live, because also in this industry, the minute you put out a bad product, people are going to know about it. And especially, you know, with the world that is today with social media and so forth. I mean, it's, if you're not running a world of integrity, then
Right.
people know.
Yeah.
I mean, you may be doing great, you may be thriving, but people know. I mean,
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
and especially with a small business, you can't lose those customers.
Right.
It's, I mean, that's That's your dinner at night.
Yep.
So it has to be lived up to that standard. So I know it probably has to do with a hard top or a hard top somewhere or a camper shell or something. But one of the questions we like to ask is, if you had an unlimited budget, what would be your build and what would you use it for?
I don't know necessarily the unlimited budget, but I'm kind of in the middle of, and you saw it when you were over,
Yep.
of something that I'd wanted to do in that time of starting the business, and I kind of really got out of scramblers. I didn't have one for probably 10 years, 10 or 15 years. So a couple years ago, a friend of mine from that time frame era called me up and said, "Hey, I know where there's a scrambler. You should go get it." And I was like, I just don't have any desire to work on old stuff. I mean, they're cold,
Yeah.
crusty stuff anymore.
Yeah.
So he
I
said,
can
"Go look
respect
at it."
that.
He goes, "It's an estate sale. They got to move some of the stuff. You should go get it." So I went ahead and went over, looked at it, and it was right here in town. Two brothers had a kind of a collection of vehicles. It was an '83 Scrambler Laredo, and he had used it as a hunting vehicle, and he had bought it brand new.
No way.
So long
That's
story, I was able to buy it. It had 260,000 miles on it, I think.
Yeah.
Was fairly solid for the most part. But we got it home, got it running, but of course you start peeling the onion back and you start seeing things. Found out the frame was cracked up on the front frame horns. So back at the last scrambler that I had owned, I had wanted to put uh, a coil sprung frame underneath a scrambler. So
There you
putting
go.
CJ axles underneath it.
There you
So
go.
kind of a whim, ended up finding a rolling chassis for an LJ, and we stuck it underneath the scrambler. LJ wheelbase is actually the exact same as a scrambler. So 1023 is wheelbase. So we only had to add to the rear of behind the rear wheel, redo the body mounts. So it now is a '83 Scrambler with sitting on a 2006 LJ chassis,
That's so cool.
4.0 automatic fuel injection, all the brake lines, fuel lines, all that stuff. Just a driver, we took it to the Scrambler event. It just has like a 2-inch lift kit. I've got the cool sticker on it that says it still has the original paint. It's got the original decals. It's not great. It's kind of faded, but it's got the sticker on it that yes, it's cool. No, I'm not gonna paint it. So I'm just gonna drive it. We want
That's
to
cool.
get the back seat set up for the kids, the boys, and or Cooper does want to start driving it to school. So
That's
we'll see.
awesome.
But I mean, as far as what else to do, to make that the ultimate, I probably wouldn't, make it some massive crawler or anything. Just
No.
well, I'd like to maybe put JK axles underneath it just for a little bit more width.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those look really good
And
on your TJ or that platform.
yep. And then I mean, just for now, just drive it.
Yeah.
You know, we wheeled it a little bit, and we go to a couple of these other events occasionally. So nothing serious, and I really wouldn't want to tear it up because it is hard to replace the panels on that thing. So
I was going to say, you bounce that thing too much, so
yeah,
you may lose some more panels on it.
and
So,
it's cool because it's got it's got a story behind it, which every Jeep does.
Yeah, the nostalgia is awesome. Yeah, the Rust definitely has stories for sure.
And it to the note we were talking about earlier, it's just completely different driving that thing. It rides, it rides like a LJ, and pseudo drives like an LJ, but you all know, ripping the back loop on your belt pants, getting in and out of a CJ or a YJ. I've already done that on those.
True.
It your legs fit different in it. You watch the water run down on your shoes, and you can look down and see the Flintstones on through the floorboard.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you're not looking at the floor when you drive, is it really a vintage
That's right. That's right.
style? If you're not looking at the road going underneath you. So, well, Matt, this has been an incredible blessing to have you on. I love what you're doing. I love your innovation. I purchased one of your Jeep jackets a while back. Of course, we won't name any names. There's other on the market. I've had others. Loved your product. Of course, had it for like 2 months before I sold my TJ. But love the product. Definitely stands out above other generic, I guess, mass-produced products out there. And the J trucks are awesome. That's
They are very, very awesome.
love what you're doing with that.
Well, thank you guys, and I mean, for having me on here, and I will I'll pay it forward. I keep what you're doing, keep on doing it. It's in my opinion, I think it is I think there is an opportunity here for this. People, it's a different medium, and I think people are, want to learn the people part of just the market of different parts of.
Yeah, they want to see
Not,
faces.
I mean, not that they're sitting here listening to me, but I mean, I know you talked about a couple other guests you got coming on that you're working with, and I think people want to hear that. And it's not something, of course, nobody wants to sit here and look at my ugly mug, but it's a medium that you can just put your ear pods in and listen to, while you're doing anything.
Yeah.
And still have learn something.
Right.
You're absorbing instead of instead of just consuming pictures on Instagram and whatever. You're consuming knowledge.
And I think that was
Yes.
really our heart behind it. And that's why the campfire theme came out, because we both have stories behind our off-road experience and our builds and so forth and our Jeeps. And we know there's thousands out there, great stories about Jeeps, and we want to hear that. And obviously from business owners to builders, it doesn't matter. I mean, if it's around a Jeep or off-road, we want to hear it and see what got you there. And yeah, we love the people side of it. So
Yeah. Well,
But-
let me know. I mean, if we can help in any way, and
awesome.
along the way, or if you need anything, we're more than willing to help.
Well, we get down the road, we'd love to have you back, Matt.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well,
Sounds
thank
good.
you guys very much. You've been listening to the Off-Road Campfire podcast, the hosts Clinton and Ryan. But Matt, I'm even going to throw it back to you real quick. Tell people how they can get a hold of you or connect with you in any way, shape.
So it is Gr8Tops. So it's GR8 TOPS.com, Gr8Tops.com. And Facebook is just Gr8Tops as well. Instagram is Gr8Tops_Jeep. And we also have the YouTube channel as well. A lot of the install videos and everything else on there.
Cool.
Well, awesome. Well, we've been hosted tonight by Clinton from JC Jeeps and myself from Jeep Next. So I think it's time to put out the fire and say thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you on the next episode.
See you guys.
See you guys.
Thank you.